ADvTECH has announced that Leslie Maasdorp, the chairman of the board of directors, is becoming the chief executive of that company. But Les is a banker of great repute, having worked with ABSA Capital recently, or I suppose not Barclays Capital it's called, having worked with international groups. He's with us in studio. Les, you're going to have to forgive us. We're not hijacking your appointment. We will talk to you about that in a moment. But the whole Abel story is something that you would know more, or you would know better than most others. Have you been involved with this kind of an issue before?
Not directly, Alec, but obviously this is a matter that I wouldn't want to, with my ADvTECH hat on, comment on.
Sure.
I'm no longer in the banking industry, and I know that the Banking Supervision Department, the Reserve Bank, and everybody's eyes and lenders are focused on how to deal with this and ensure that there's no systemic risk to the financial system, and I'm sure that those in authority will do a good job doing that.
They certainly seem to have, but you were involved with the American banks at the time of the difficulties that went through there. So you've got a feeling better than most of exactly how it feels at a time like this.
The only thing I would say, Alec, is that this country is renowned for the strength and the robustness of its financial regulatory architecture. So the Reserve Bank, Banking Supervision, Financial Services Board, I mean, you know that the South African banking system was ranked in the top 5 in the world. So I'm sure that those in the leadership will deal with this issue as they've done before.
We're blessed.
Absolutely.
We're blessed from that
Absolutely.
perspective, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so you're not going to tell us about your banking background. So tell me, how does a chairman of a company suddenly become its CEO, non-exec, in a field where you're a banker, you're not an educator?
Sure. I think firstly, Alec, I'm very excited about this role. It's obviously a change. The important thing is that I know the business. I've been involved with the business since 2009 as a non-executive director, and then as chairman for most of the period. So I'm not new to the strategy of the business, not new to the sector at all. The company and the sector is very hot right now. As you know, we will be engaging in further strategies to effect growth, and a lot of the skills that I've acquired in the banking world will be very valuable and useful for this next phase. I think it's important to say that I've been part of the development of strategy over the last number of years, but there are a few areas where we will inject new and fresh momentum going forward. I mean, the sector, as you know, is really, really on fire. Not just in South Africa, globally.
Curo's on fire.
Exactly.
That's
my next question, actually, as to how you're going to respond to the competition.
Curo occupies one particular segment in the market. ADvTECH, as you know, we've been a leader in the sort of premium branded education products. So in our segment, we are the market leader. What we will be embarking on, though, is a new entree, if you like, into the low-fee or affordable school sector, where there's massive growth, right? And that is partially the space that Caro is in as well. And I think that there'll be lots of other new players entering the market, not just from South Africa, but also internationally. I mean, you see it in other emerging markets. Private equity players are entering this space as well. So I think the space is large, and we will, in our chosen segment as ADvTECH, we will carve our own growth path. I think it's also important to note that this is not a South Africa story. We will be exploring other geographies in time. South Africa remains the heart of our focus, but I think Sub-Saharan Africa is a big opportunity. As you know, there's massive growth, 6, 7, 8% in most parts of Sub-Saharan Africa. So especially the English-speaking world in Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya, Uganda, these countries are all growing at rates much higher than South Africa. So they will be a target going forward.
Just on that, the exploration onto the rest of the continent, surely then government ties will be something that will be quite important.
I think, Gugu, the issue of partnerships is also central to our strategy, right? I think maybe I should start off by saying that education, is a public good. Education remains fundamentally in the public domain. Private education is not going to solve the education crises in South Africa or the rest of the continent. However, private education, I think, has got an important role to play to complement existing strategies by governments across the continent to educate their populations and, if you like, have an educated and skilled workforce, because the requirements of a modern day economy requires skilled and educated people. So we will also be embracing partnerships with the government. I mean, in South Africa, we're already embarking on a whole series of ideas to strengthen and deepen the request by government for the private sector to step in You might know that June, July last year, big companies together with government launched a National Education Collaborative Trust.
Even in the budget, but that's not
Exactly
that's not what you're here for.
Sure.
You're here because shareholders are looking at you and saying,
Sure.
I bought into ADvTECH, the share price up 15% last year. I've got a 3.5 billion market cap. A little Curo came across. It is up 46% in the last year, and its market cap's 8.5 billion. So it's come from behind and gone way past ADvTECH. How are you going to close that gap?
Look, I mean, I'd say, obviously when you start out, right, you can experience huge growth levels off a low base, right? We're an established company, has been around for a long time. So the segment that we occupy right now, we will continue to drive organic growth, but that is not going to shoot the lights out. Where we are going to grow significantly, as I mentioned earlier on, is in that space, in the low-fee private education space.
What's the margin like there?
Curo has got their own strategy. They've got their company with their own. I mean, I can't
But
speak
what's the margin like in the low
them.
space if you
Well,
focus
it
in there?
all depends on the way in which the cost base is managed. We believe, right, and this is where we are different. We believe that by clever use of technology through innovation, we believe we'll be able to provide both low fee or low cost education, but with a high degree of quality. So if there's innovative ways in which you use technology, it's not inferior education. So we're not going to be a business in future with sort of premium branded Crawford schools and Trinity schools and so on, and then sort of inferior education. What we will be having a different segment, low fee private schools with a huge focus on technology.
That will also mean that you'll need to up your capital raising initiatives.
Sure. Look, we've already announced a 3 billion rand program over the next 10 years. That is already sort of signed off by the board. What we're saying now, we're going to accelerate our capital investment program because of this new focus in the low-fee private school segment.
Well, we've often given poor old Frank a hard time by saying that Curo were beating him to the punch. Under your management, perhaps next time we're going to talk to you, you'll say, well, you see what we've done to Curo now. We're going to get a higher rating too.
Look forward to coming to talk to you again as the strategy unfolds.
But Les, it's good luck, and it is a big move from being a chairman to being the CEO. But I'm sure you know the business, as you've said before, and you've got the strategy. Pity you wouldn't talk to us about the banking story, because I know that's an area that you know very well as well. That was Leslie Maasdorp, who's incoming CEO of ADvTECH.